Order the Pownal Select Board, meeting of the Pownal Select Board, sorry. It's Friday, January 31st, 2020 for a special meeting, 5:30. So on the agenda tonight will be, Select Board will conduct the following business. Ballot articles, discussion for Second Amendment sanctuary and auditor positions, undesignated general surplus funds, undesignated road surplus funds, approval of fiscal year 21 general fund budget, approve fiscal year 21 road fund budget, and 2020 town warning, and then we'll adjourn.
So moved.
All right, so we... A second?
The second was one amendment, that the article on the Second Amendment doesn't need to be a ballot article, but we can do it as a resolution.
How about do discussion?
For-
Want to just second his motion, then
Second
we'll
it,
discuss
yep.
that.
Yeah.
There we go. Sorry.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as stated.
Yes.
So is there any discussion?
Yeah, I just have a couple things. Were we supposed to add the meeting cadence to the agenda that we talked about at the budget meeting the other night?
I think that's supposed to go to a, shouldn't that be in the regular section, in the regular session, not in the special session? So that would be next week, right?
Yeah, I think that would be next week.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can add to a special meeting agenda. So let's put meeting cadence. I'm requesting meeting cadence be added to the agenda. And then I want to touch base real quick on the forensic audit, please. And then I have a question regarding the external audit.
I would like to try to keep this limited to what's on here because we really need to get through the budget stuff.
Yeah.
Yep, you can add those three things right to the end. Thank you.
Okay, we'll put them at the end. Okay, so what were your items?
And I would just
Forensic audit.
Do we?
She said.
I'm sorry, what?
Oh,
I was asking you to relist what you had written so I can write it down.
Oh, I thought Linda said Linda got it. Forensic audit, external audit, and meeting cadence.
Okay. Any other discussion? Harry?
that the board can do a resolution. It doesn't need to go to be added to, as an article to the town for a vote for the Second Amendment article.
Okay, so you want that just to be discussion then?
Yep.
Instead of ballot article?
No.
Okay. You're just pointing it out.
That's how I feel about it.
Okay.
I think the board can make that decision. If the rest of you are concurring, or if not concurring, so.
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it.
I'm
All
good
right.
with that.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor to accept the agenda with amendments? Say aye.
Aye.
I
All opposed? Okay. So, on to ballot articles discussion. So, well, Second Amendment's listed first, so who was bringing that?
I have some language to make us a sanctuary, to make Pownal designated as a Second Amendment sanctuary town. I've looked at a couple of other towns. I thought it was a ballot article in some of the other towns in Vermont, but it wasn't. It was every one that I found has been a resolution that was voted on by the board. I think it's a non-binding. It's just a signal that we don't want to change and we don't want to lose our Second Amendment rights to Montpelier.
Right.
A signal to Montpelier, not that we're losing them to Montpelier. And I think I would prefer to do it as a vote.
As a vote of the board or a
As
vote,
a vote
or
of the
ballot
board. I'm
article?
sorry, a vote of the board, and to just declare us a Second Amendment sanctuary.
You want to share the verbiage?
Hey Bob, can you read?
Sure. So here's one possibility. Pownal hereby declares itself to be a Second Amendment and Article 16 constitutional gun owner township as defined herein. The town hereby recognizes the inalienable rights of all persons within its boundaries to keep and bear arms as described by both Article 16 of the Vermont Constitution and the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States of America, including but not limited to the lawful use of firearms in defense of life, liberty, and property, and in defense of the state from all enemies, foreign and domestic. The safe and responsible use of firearms for hunting and utilitarian purposes, and for the safe and responsible use of firearms for sporting purposes, including Olympic sports. Furthermore, per Marbury versus Madison, 5 U.S. 137, 1803, the township hereby declares all federal. Sorry, I have to move to the next one. All federal and state laws and regulations attempting to restrict these rights to be infringements, hence null and void under this resolution, signed this day of, and then that. And I can give you that. I see you over there writing feverishly. I can send that to you. So that was one option, and then there was another one in from a Virginia town. This was a Vermont town, so this is probably more applicable.
That's similar to Holland and Pittsburgh's language, who's already adopted it.
And Cavendish did also, and but I couldn't find that language. Well, I didn't have time to find the language before I loaded up my computer and drove down here.
So if we as a board vote in support of that, could it be challenged?
It's advisory, right?
Right.
It's not.
Okay.
It's not a.
You said it was a non-binding.
binding.
Right.
It's a non-binding resolution,
It's-
but it sends a signal that we prefer to keep our Second Amendment rights. And I would also point out that Vermont has consistently been one of the most Second Amendment free states, and consistently been among the safest states for gun violence. So futzing with our laws is not a good idea, in my view. So I think it's. I think we're doing. I think my opinion is that would be doing the right thing.
Mine also.
Okay.
So
Can I ask a question? Before you take a vote, what is given the timing of this so close to an election, it was posted as a ballot article on the minutes. What is the thought behind having 5 people make that decision as having the citizens make that decision, since an election is going to be within a month?
Well, my thought would be that it is representational democracy.
Yeah, no, I'm not
that's,
saying
and
you
it-
can't do it. I'm wondering the wisdom of doing it, I guess.
It seems to me to be there's wisdom there. We have the right and the authority to do it. It seems like the right decision to me. The only reason we had said ballot article is we had heard other towns had done it, and at that point we didn't realize that most of those towns had done it through a select board vote or not a ballot article.
They did it as
It's
a
not.
resolution versus a ballot article.
Okay.
So far, there hasn't been, to my knowledge, in our state, a townwide vote that's been done
It's all been done the
in
way
the
you're
local
proceeding.
governments.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have there been any votes that are actually binding in Vermont? In other words, has any town passed a resolution like this that has had any legal binding?
Not as of yet.
It's all pretty new, so none of it's been challenged, right? So, and it's in at least for me, and I think the understanding is that this is in response to a lot of new gun bills that are going through Montpelier, and there's new ones out there every day. So this is sort of the response to say that we want to keep our Second Amendment and our constitutional rights.
And
So,
also, I was going to say also, whether it's voted on by the people or whether we do this resolution, the law supersedes what is happening as far as the resolution. So it doesn't give anybody carte blanche to go break the law. And these guys,
right,
if they have a warrant to take, that's not what it's for.
okay.
I would also point out that if the new board didn't agree with it, they could overturn it.
Right, yeah.
They could repeal it.
But it's not, it is requiring adherence to all of the current Vermont laws,
Correct.
but it's sending a message that the legislature, you want to be careful about putting any additional.
Correct.
Okay.
That's
That's
basically
the
Okay.
thought
So-
behind it, okay.
So is there a motion?
make a motion to adopt the verbiage, that Bob read, to add a resolution as the town of Pownal as a second amendment sanctuary.
I will
Were you
second that.
going to include Article 16?
Is in that.
Okay.
It's in there.
All right.
It is.
Yes.
Okay.
That's why I said the verbiage that he read.
Sorry, but then you started
Well, that's
adding to it. So.
rather than
Okay.
I
So-
seconded.
All right. So there's a motion and a second to approve the declaration as stated. So is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Okay.
What's that?
Somebody's
Pager.
pager. Okay, so moving on to ballot
I'm
article
sorry,
for.
was that unanimous?
It was unanimous. So moving on to auditor positions.
I would like to add article number 31. Shall the town authorize the elimination of the office of town auditor with future audits to be provided by a certified public accountant licensed in the state of Vermont in accordance with VSA Chapter 17, Section 2651B, 1A, and 2A?
Okay. So is there there's a motion?
I'm confused.
It's gonna be Article 30.
Oh, Article 30?
Yeah, because
Oh,
we
you guys are
don't-
leaving?
We don't need
Yes.
one for the
Second Amendment.
second
But
amendment.
here, cross your names up. So we're gonna have to ask you to sign in. We'll have to keep track of who's here for
Thank you.
occupancy level. So we have a sign-in sheet over here.
And then Jim.
So if you could just sign in down there, please. Thank you, sir.
So what you're asking for is to eliminate having the internal auditors? Is that what you're asking for?
So
To have it be
No,
a
this is
certificate,
the,
no,
I'm just asking for clarification on that.
well, it was in the newsletter and we can do this and.
It was in the
I think it's
VLCT newsletter.
The VLCT newsletter.
Provided with sample ballot articles that a lot of towns are moving toward this. I did some research on it after I saw the
just think
agenda.
It's the smart thing to do.
So a lot of towns are moving toward this. That way they, as it states, a certified public accountant, because the danger with hiring elected officials into positions like that is you may not get qualified individuals. I believe we've discussed that with various elected positions in the past. There's always the chance you can get somebody who doesn't know what they're doing. So
this has been cleared by VLCT, because I thought.
yeah, it was in the January February newsletter actually.
I understand.
Because I reached out to the VLCT for clarification,
Because,
and
I
they
can
said refer to your newsletter.
all right, because
Page 3, actually.
the reason for having elected auditors versus appointed auditors from the select board, therefore there's no quid pro quo or any of that type of stuff. During the checks and balances. I mean, that was the purpose of that.
And I
So
think
I was
to
just
the
curious.
checks and balances, I
Jamie,
think the
Hold on, Bob's saying something.
sorry.
to the checks and balances, I think the by getting an external auditor, you get somebody who can't possibly have personal animosities or those sorts of things. You don't have any. We have more control as an elected body to make sure that it's independent and that it's completely objective, and I think that's important. So
I do
I
too.
support this.
No, I didn't.
So are we going to be increasing the budget to cover the cost of a certified CPA that we would have to contract? I mean,
The way-
they run
so
like
the-
$100 to $200 an hour.
So the way the article is written, you can refer to your newsletter for it, is, and I got clarification, is you can do it, I think, no sooner than 45 days after an election, but there's no time frame on it. The town could take the next 2 years to find a certified, auditor if they wanted to take that long.
I'd like to clarify that, because I did talk to PJ,
Okay.
JP, up at the Secretary of State's office.
Yes.
If you put this ballot on, you don't know if it's gonna pass or not. So the people who are running for the position still run,
Right.
Yeah.
okay? If the ballot passes, you have 45 days to continue the people who got elected, and after 45 days, they have to leave the job, whether you have found a replacement or not.
Hold on, let me.
That's what he said, which means if you went 6 months before you found somebody, you would not have an auditor for, anything after the 45 days.
Right.
The
I am not up on the newsletter right now, so
the
Hold on, I'm pulling it
It
up right
will
now.
expire in 45 days.
Yeah.
that's why I
So-
asked for clarification.
Camera, zoom
I
in.
think the point that Ryan makes about having people who are certified, I mean, we're very fortunate right now that we have auditors who have come with good qualifications.
Some background, yes.
Yeah,
Well, they're certified.
so that, yeah,
They're
but,
both CPAs.
right, yeah, but that wouldn't be guaranteed.
Right.
But the
Correct.
other thing is, like recently, this board has not particularly liked some of the things that are coming from the auditors. And Elizabeth asked, the last time for a resignation. If that situation had been where the auditor was hired by the board could demand the resignation of that auditor and change. So I don't think it guarantees, what you were saying, the checks and balance, it doesn't guarantee that the person isn't going to feel pressure from the board in terms of how they do their accounting. But I think it's not an unwise thing to do.
No,
Yeah.
like I say, I'm not up on that particular item. So.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, no, it's not a bad idea.
No.
Because then you have certified individuals. But what happens is when you've got someone that's reporting to the board, now the board controls what the public is told.
No.
And so
It's
may I
it's
please
being
finish?
That's
May I
not
please
at all
finish?
true.
Thank you.
sure. Go ahead, Marlena.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's an external auditor, that person then reports
the
to the board,
newsletter if you
which
wanna
is
see it.
fine. Whereas right now, the internal auditors don't report to the board; they report to the public. So they can disclose information. So as long as the board has the best interest of the public in mind, and that we're not looking at not being transparent, as long as the board is ensuring that by hiring an auditor, that we will continue to be transparent and not keep things from the public, that's great. That would be great to ensure that there is a certified professional in place.
And yes, I totally agree. Are you done?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's great that you keep bringing up the transparency, but I think there are definitely issues with the unprofessionalism, and we need someone from the outside to come in. That's just what I think. It's convoluted, and I just think we need to keep it fair and no sides, and
If I could
just the way it is.
I know that we've had some sessions with our internal auditors, and in every one of those, and even when they were present with the forensic auditor, I voiced my concerns in every one of those meetings about how we were talking too much about personalities and not enough about credits, debits, policy, and whether or not it adhered. So that's where I have some concerns. So if we had some control on finding people who, just more professional that are out of town, that couldn't possibly have the personal animosities or even the perception of a personal animosity. I'm not saying that would skew it does or doesn't skew, but it certainly made me uncomfortable to hear the discussions about personality instead of the discussions about the actual job of auditor.
I don't think the question of how the town adequately pays for this has really been addressed.
I'm sorry, I couldn't
Oh,
hear
I'm
that.
sorry.
The
Could you state your
question
name,
of
please?
how the town pays for this, for the audit.
Can you state your
Ma'am,
name,
could you
please?
state your name, please? And come up closer so Marlene can hear you on the phone.
Caitlin Barnes. I don't understand. You asked the question of how the town would pay for this. I don't really think that was adequately answered. Could one of you address that?
Correct, because right now we have a budget of $5,000 for the internal
Ellen's
auditor.
waving her hand.
So I'm kind of going to hit on that, and I have a question.
Okay.
Okay, so if you hire an outside CPA, you're going to hire a person or a firm, correct? Would that CPA not actually be doing our audit then anyway? Our actual yearly audit. If you're hiring a CPA to do everyday audit, he is auditing our books all year long. Would that same person be doing our
annual.
I'm asking.
No, you'd still have to
I
hire a
think we
separate
have to
annual
do
Ellen to
separate.
keep the conflict of interest
Yeah,
separate.
we'd have to do separate.
That's
think,
what I
would
want to know.
think, Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Just to keep the checks and balances.
right,
keep
and that's
it-
where, I mean, we do have an audit fund right now. It obviously doesn't have a lot of money in it, but we've spent money that wasn't in the budget this year. And so if we moved forward, you know, you would have to adjust it. If this did pass, if this goes on the ballot and does pass, then you would have to, your next budgeting season, you would have to budget it in. We've done many things that weren't in the budget this year.
Hi, Jim Kosis. Just relating to what she just said, one of the thoughts I've always had was if in our external audit, the one that's done at the end of the year, was basically hired at the beginning of the year, and he's available to do the duties of making sure entries are done correctly, checking on, making sure that all the debits and credits are done correctly. I don't think it would involve the checks and balances, because he's hired in a sense to make sure that the books do get done correctly. And as he's doing that throughout the year, when it comes to the end of the year, he's not spending so much time basically auditing the town, and it depends on the number of invoices he has to look at, depending on what the problems have been in the past. Hopefully we can get to the point of being the best bookkeeping town in the state, and that within a month we'll have an audit done because he knows all those books.
I guess
That
we
was
gotta
my
check
point.
with VLCT to take.
Right, so when
see
the,
if
so
that's legal.
Jim, are you saying that when the external auditor comes in, it should be a lot quicker?
He should be hired in July 1st.
Right. That's what he's saying, is if the external auditor is starting early, then he could finish it up a lot quicker. If he was a person, the same audit firm, throughout the year.
Because
But I
it's
don't know
a
if that's
firm is
legal.
my point.
Right.
It's a firm.
No,
It's
I don't.
not
I don't think you can
appointed.
have one person doing all the auditing. I think you still have to have whoever it was that said the checks and the balances.
It may be a second person from that same
Yeah.
firm.
Well,
Ugh.
I think if we're gonna put it on a ballot article, we shouldn't be arguing the pros and cons.
Right.
We should just be deciding whether or not we're gonna put it on a ballot article and let people decide.
Yeah, let the voters.
That's right, let the voters decide, and then we can either lobby
But
for
I
or
just want to
against.
point something out real quick. But I'm not in argument. I'm not arguing the fact that it wouldn't be a good idea. But by what was just laid out and framed out, you almost framed out an acknowledgement that it's punishing the position that brought forth many items that has been validated by the forensic auditor.
Well,
There's
hang on,
been
that's
nothing
not-
fraudulent or anything to that.
Nobody said fraud. Nobody
No,
said
but
that word,
it's
Liz, but
no.
the,
You're
Well, hang on, if
but
I
the
could,
forensic auditor has brought
One at a time,
to the
one at a time, please.
community's attention many items that were brought forth by the internal auditors that the community would never have known about had they not brought these items forward. And they have all been validated by the forensic auditor, which is why
As a
we
matter of
can
fact,
put
that's not true.
through
No, it's
and
not.
potentially recoup many of the items.
so that's not actually true. What we were
Oh,
led
it's
to
not.
believe that, hang on, let me finish. We went into this forensic audit, and I think if we knew today what we knew when we were deciding to go into forensic audit, we would not have spent $50,000 of the taxpayers'
Correct.
money to go into the forensic audit to find out things that were already uncovered in the regular annual audits. So, and there was no, we believe that there was dishonest things that were happening that were somewhat dishonest in our current practices. And what we've heard, we don't have the final report from the forensic audit, so that may come out different than what I'm talking about. But what he's told us so far, when I asked the specific question of did you find any wrongdoing, his answer was no. We found some processes that could be tightened up. We found some things that could be done better. but there wasn't any dishonesty that he had uncovered in our current practices. When we went into this forensic audit, we believed that there was, and that's why we went into it.
We believed that there was based on what we were being told, but they were really molehills, not like the
Yeah.
huge mountains.
That's correct. So
Like
we're also
totally
seeing things that
steered
are.
to believe that
We're seeing minor issues being blown way out of proportion. And to talk, I know we talked about this a little bit at the last select board meeting, but when we pulled out, we as a board heard that the overtime was being abused. We pulled out the warrant, we looked at the overtime, we compared it to the policy, and we found it to be in compliance. We were being told that it was not in compliance.
and
it was
something
in
as simple
compliance.
as asking the person too, because it all
Right.
could be
It was lack of
explained.
communication.
Yeah, that's correct. So there was a lot of things that we could have found out just through better communication and going to the individuals and asking the questions instead of assuming there was something wrong and then reporting it as something wrong. There was a lot of that. Shoot.
So Mr. Graham just sat there last week, and he reiterated that the payroll taxes for the delinquent tax collector are being changed after warrants are signed and reappropriated back through
Right,
the
those
general
were
fund
process
to the
changes
tune of
that
about
we found that
$6,000
were
per
wrong.
year.
They were
So,
process
so
changes.
Mr. Graham is wrong. Okay.
No, I didn't
He
say
talked
that.
to- I'm sorry, Bob. Can I please finish? Thank you. He specified that there was a payroll tax fees, or the payroll taxes on the delinquent tax collector fees that are being passed back through to the taxpayers. He specified that the delinquent tax collector fees were being matched through Vermont retirement funding, which were unqualified. He stated that. He talked about hundreds of thousands of dollars of unauthorized transactions that are occurring after warrants are signed. He spoke about accounts being opened and closed unauthorized. Wanted to know if we were authorizing these things. So I'm confused as to what we knew about or what we could have fixed, because these are things that Mr. Graham has validated.
That was not my interpretation of what Mr. Graham said. He said that we had this exposure that these things could happen because of our processes, and they weren't tight enough to prevent those things from happening. I don't think he found hundreds of thousands of dollars misappropriated, which is what you seem to be saying.
That's what
I
he
didn't
said.
hear that
That's
at all.
not what I said. That's what he said.
No, that's not what he said. That's
He
my point.
did say that.
No, that's not
Dave
hundreds of
actually had his
thousands.
hand up.
I think
Dave? Dave, you had your hand up?
Yes, I did. A major part of preparing doing the job of the internal auditors is the preparation of the annual report, which is a very significant job in terms of the number of hours that it takes. Would this change leave the preparation of the annual report to the taxpayers in limbo, or how would it be done, and who would have that responsibility after this change?
Those are all great questions. That's
Well, many towns have their town administration do it.
well. That's why I'd say we need to bring it to the voters, and then we also need to do some more homework with the LCT. I mean, we found this out through a newsletter, so we haven't really had time to do homework.
And I really feel that
Further on
something needs to change, and I think this is.
I think it has
make
to change.
right.
I don't think this board. I know I would have voted no on a forensic audit if I knew today what I
Me too.
knew
That's
back
my
when we
biggest
did
regret.
it. And that's $50,000 of taxpayer money that is gone now.
Can I, Jackie Sedlock, when the forensic report comes back, will it clarify this misunderstanding, this difference in
Oh, you mean
whether
between
this
what
man,
I've heard and what
Yes.
you
between
heard.
what you and Marlena were saying? Like, will that report just sort of clarify that for
I think, and in
people?
the, yes, I
should.
believe it will, because
Okay.
he's gonna have all of
Okay.
that itemized. And and the disagreement there was what we heard him
What
say.
you heard him say.
But we can go to
Right.
YouTube and watch
watch
the,
it.
watch the,
Watch it.
watch it
Watch it.
again and see
If we,
exactly
if we had
what
the
he said
time and energy.
see-
But will the report sort of make clear?
We don't have a final report yet, and it will.
Got
Yeah.
you, okay.
And he
In
did
fact,
say
we
the
asked that
final
specific
report
question in the
will have
last
all the
meeting,
recommendations.
That the final report will have all of the findings and
Okay,
recommendations.
okay.
Dave?
Thank you.
Do your statements imply that you are going to terminate the forensic audit?
That's something that we're still considering, not terminate. We contracted for a certain amount, and then he came back and asked for more money in order to complete it, and we're considering whether or not we're going to do that. We haven't voted on it yet.
He asked
That's
for more
probably
money to keep going.
To go
to
further.
keep going.
To go further.
And that should really be up to the taxpayers if they would like him to finish phase 2 so that he can finish the currently open case, which would be part of the second phase.
I don't. It's
Gotta
not going to
get
be a
the
ballot
report.
article, so it's going to be up to the board.
Could it be a ballot article?
It could be. If the taxpayers want to move forward with that, they should have a say.
But we would have to decide on that tonight. No one's even looked at the language.
And shouldn't they have had a say in the beginning? I mean, it's
Yeah, I
just-
mean, they didn't have a say when we entered into the forensic
Right.
audit.
Well,
Right.
we
So, I
didn't know.
mean, that's what the
Well,
select board's
we don't
election.
And there could always be a petition for a special election, which would just cost more money.
Right.
Or it could be a town hall vote
Yeah.
at the town meeting.
Could be a floor vote, yeah.
Yes. So,
I
If we do that, if we're a town that does that.
don't think you act on any articles.
not an article, no.
You don't take
That's-
binding
That's not an
votes there
article.
except
that's-
to approve.
No,
them.
asking if well, it could be
I
a
don't
binding
know.
article if it's appropriating dollars.
Okay, that's true.
but we're off topic.
But
Yes.
We're way off topic.
So we do have a lot to do.
We do. Okay, so back on track. All right, so
Discussion.
that was the
call
discussion.
question.
So we had a discussion. So just as a reminder, it's a vote whether or not to put Article 31 on the ballot.
30.
Do we have a
can you
motion?
read?
I thought there was a motion.
I would motion to, yes.
Can
Yes.
you read the ballot? The article itself.
Shall the town authorize the elimination of the office of town auditor with future audits to be provided by a certified public accountant licensed in the state of Vermont in accordance with VSA Chapter 17, Section 2651, B, 1A, and 2A?
Okay, I just want to make sure that this isn't a direct attempt to retaliate against our internal auditors for bringing forth
Why
their
would you think that,
well-documented
Marlena?
detailed reports. I just want to make sure, because it's just odd that it's popped up.
It was in the newsletter, actually, ironically.
There's a lot of stuff in the newsletter.
Well, specifically, it was page 3 of the VLCT newsletter that directly deals with municipalities changing. I believe it listed listers and
Yes.
dang it,
There was a few
I think
other
the
things.
answer to
It
that
did
question
list-
is of
list
course.
listed
Yeah.
listers and
It's,
auditors with
It's
ballot
not the,
with ballot wording.
right, that's not the,
I think the answer to Marlena's question is of course not. I mean, we
Thank you, Bob.
articulated why. We articulated
wanna make
why.
sure that we're not
Marlena,
retaliating.
please let me finish. We articulated
ahead.
why. We discussed it, and none of it was retaliation, and of course that's not it.
Just want to
Okay.
make sure.
All right.
It could be
Wanted to spread
optically
it.
viewed as retaliating against whistleblowers, so we just want to make sure of that.
Is there a second?
yes, I had seconded it.
Yeah, Harry seconded. All right. Hold on, let me get to discussion first. So we have a motion and a second
You already did it.
to approve. Well, now we get to officially have discussion. So is there any discussion?
As an internal auditor for the past 5 years, I would vote in favor of this motion.
Thank
Right.
you, Dave.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Let the voters do it.
Yeah, let the voters
Marlena?
decide.
Marlena,
Yep,
your vote?
didn't you hear me?
No.
Yep, now we did.
Okay. Motion carries. Okay, so
Now we can
Moving
do the voting
on.
stuff. Does everybody still want to stay?
okay.
For a while at least.
So, all right, moving on to undesignated general surplus funds. Thank you, sir.
Have a good night.
Okay.
Since Bob mentioned that question, in the addition of the forensic audit to the, Marlena, you added forensic audit to the agenda?
Yeah, that's gonna be
Yes.
other business.
Okay, but is that, you said you haven't decided if you're gonna continue the forensic audit, is that what that discussion is
I don't know.
tonight?
No, I wanted to add it, Rose. Sorry, is it Rose?
It is.
Okay.
I have a
thank you.
recognizable voice.
I requested to add it because I do feel that if we're considering putting items on the ballot, that should be one that we do consider putting on the ballot and let the voters decide if the public wants to spend the $24,500 to continue with phase 2 of the audit, which would
Okay.
bring closure to the currently.
I wouldn't even call it phase 2
No.
because
think that's what
they
he
only
called it.
got
What
2
did he-
ye- he only got 2 they only got 2 years into the audit of the proposed 6 and they
What did he call
didn't
it, though? What did he call
I
it?
didn't think he called it phase 2.
He did not call it phase 2. He said in order to complete the full audit, and then he explained why it has taken more time to get to where he is now than he had originally estimated.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so in order to complete the things that he was going to do, he would need to do that. But so far, what he's done is take a baseline of our current processes, and that's where he found no wrongdoing, just some process changes that
Yep.
we could.
And I would like to point out he
did find
they're only
wrongdoing.
2 years in.
He
No,
found,
that's not correct.
He found payroll taxes that were misappropriated. He found retirement taxes that we now know we can recoup.
Marlena, I don't think we need to go through what
Okay.
you heard and what I heard, but I did ask him the specific question of was there anything dishonest, is what I was asking. And his
Nobody's
answer
saying there was
no.
anything dishonest.
Okay, well, that's
Well,
what I'm
when you
saying.
keep listing them like that, it comes off like you're saying that it's dishonest.
Ellen has her hand up.
There's
Ellen?
no conflict.
With our NEMRIC system, you can't misappropriate payroll taxes. When you submit the payroll, the system itself calculates the taxes. So I don't know if Marlene is not using the right verbiage or not, but there is no misappropriation of payroll taxes. When taxes come out of someone's check, whether it's the delinquent tax collector, Marlena, or your select board pay, the computer calculates it. We don't calculate it, and we don't change it.
That's not what Mr. Graham is saying.
That's fine, I
Well,
watched the
that's not
meeting,
right.
thank you, Marlena.
Sorry.
All right.
Okay, so undesignated general surplus funds. Let's see. So the undesignated surplus funds, we have $65,399.83. So
I thought that was for the general.
Yeah, that's the.
that's the undesignated funds left
Okay.
over from the road
That's
budget.
for number one.
That'll get rolled back over. So, item 1 is undesignated general surplus funds. Motion to apply prior year undesignated general surplus funds in the amount of $65,399.83 toward fiscal year 2021 general expenses.
So moved.
All right, so we have a motion and a second to approve the motion as stated. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, so undesignated road surplus funds. Motion to apply prior year undesignated road surplus funds in the amount of $120,762.87 toward fiscal year 2021 road expenses.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second to approve as stated. Oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
I'd just like to clarify, and maybe Ellen can clarify it better, but I know we just had a discussion, and first of all, I'd like to say that I appreciate Ellen for giving me the information that I'm asking each year, because I like to just make sure that what is designated and undesignated is proper. One of the processes I went through is to figure out from a copy of the budget is what the undesignated monies amounted to. And I came to about $200 and something thousand. So I was a little curious of how the balance sheet comes up, or the balance sheet will come up with a surplus of about $200,000. Unfortunately, we don't have access to the balance sheet, just the P&L, which is the expenses. and how you guys are coming up with 120,000, or, yeah, 120.
But there's other bills still coming in.
Right, no, I mean, that's in the accounts payable.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, in our discussions just now, there was a motion many, many years ago that happened where certain funds that are undesignated can be moved directly into a reserve account. I was a little surprised to hear that because I didn't think something like that could happen. My understanding is that any surplus is the monies of the people, and the people
Right.
have to vote for what happens to that money. So my understanding is that there could be on the balance sheet close to, before the money's moved to the reserve account as of June 30th, there is actually 200 and something thousand dollars of undesignated funds. If the motions that were made many, many years ago that says blacktopping can be moved, certain parts of the blacktopping from a state grant can be moved to a reserve account, what I'd like to see is at least a motion made for that to happen, so that we know that, and there is documentation that says, okay, yes, some of the surplus monies can be moved and will be moved to the reserve account, and the balance of the 120,000 will go to offset taxes. That's all I'm asking.
Yes, I will clarify.
Okay.
So with the road funds, the board, either the board before you or the board before that, when expenses come directly from the blacktopping fund and the Joel gets a grant from the road for specific blacktopping, and it's for blacktop, and all the payment comes from the blacktopping fund, the money from the grant goes back into the blacktopping fund.
Correct.
Because we took it out of there, we put it back in. So that's where
Yep.
he's coming up with the difference. I think it was 117,000
Yep,
this
yep.
past year.
Mhm.
From the state we received in a blacktopping grant. That money was taken and paid out of the blacktop fund. A previous board made the vote to automatically, instead of me having to come to the board and say, can I do this? They made a one-time, yes, if it specifically comes from one line item, one specific fund, the blacktopping fund. Because Jim also asked, under the culverts, we spent X amount of dollars, we received a culvert grant for, I think it was Snake Hill. And that grant was 50,000-ish that came in, am I correct, Jim? Thank you. That money was taken from several independent expense lines, not a fund. So that money went back into the overall road fund budget because it wasn't from a designated fund, it was from several different expense lines. So the money just went back in and offset the expenses. But because the blacktopping fund, the money came directly from the blacktopping fund. There was no other money that was submitted for that grant. That grant specifically went back into the blacktopping fund. And that's how, and a previous board had voted to do that.
Right.
Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
So, hey, Ellen, when the previous board voted, was that like forevermore, or was it just that 1 year?
No, it was for until it was changed. And nobody has changed it. And
Well,
Bob, I don't
can
know
we-
if you were on the
can-
board then or not. So.
Can we get a copy of whatever that information was? Just, I mean, I think it would be good for the community to review it, and then
No,
that
I
way
don't
Mr.
know right
Kosis
now.
has that information. I'd
Um,
like to read that information too.
Well, feel free to come in and look at the minutes. They're public record and they're sitting right here.
I believe that Joel already had said that with the grant, when he said that he had already put the money in to do the job, and he had applied for the grant. He explained all this to us way back earlier in the year.
When you started.
Yes.
Yes.
So I think Jim basically asked for clarification for the public. So.
Did I answer your question, Jim?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
All right. So we had a motion and a second to approve. Is there any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. So approve fiscal year 21 general fund budget.
Let me see here, yes.
So, we worked through the budget. Unfortunately, we are proposing an increase. So it goes from $429,743.93 for last year to $563,215.17 for this year. That's what we're proposing for the general fund budget.
To be raised by taxes.
To be raised by taxes. Sorry, thank you. So, I make a motion to, or I don't know how to, Jim?
I was just wondering, just for disclosure,
Mhm.
what's the percentage that is increasing from one year to the next year, which will automatically generate the increase on a person's house?
You know that?
You'll have to get that information to them another time.
Okay.
Okay, just so you know, for the general fund, not including the ballot articles or the septic, it's 31% increase for just the general portion.
So we went through the budget, and last year's budget, where they did a $60,000 decrease, they rated a lot of funds that they really shouldn't have. And so now we're having to make up for those. Plus we have to account for what we spent on forensic audit. So that's where the bulk of the increases come from.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
Well,
we didn't like it, and we did a lot of hard cuts already. We
I think we also had unbudgeted remediation at the landfill. Didn't that
Some of
add
that.
to it also?
Some of the permitting fees and
And
stuff.
that's something that we can't get out of. It's by state mandate.
No. By any chance, did you look at the prior year and see what the
Oh, yes,
percentage
yeah,
was?
I mean, I just want,
No,
like, this discussion is good so that people,
Yeah.
when they go to vote, they can sit there and say, oh, the budget's staying the same, and then all of a sudden in
Same.
October, they're gonna get a bill that says, oh my
Wow.
gosh,
It's not the town meeting.
unfortunately, they're gonna see that their taxes go up about 2%.
yeah, we can discuss all this at town meeting.
Yeah.
Jim
That was
Kosis
Jim Kosis.
Thank you.
So, okay, so I make a motion.
Second.
All right, so there's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay.
Probably say reluctantly aye.
Yeah. I'm not happy about it either. Okay, so road fund. So the budget is going from $836,029.63 to $848,697.13 for the road budget. So I make a motion to approve the budget.
Second it.
All right, there's a motion and a second to approve the budget, road budget. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. All right, 2020 town warning. All right.
Wait, before we do the 2020 town warning, should we consider putting a ballot article on to allow the taxpayers to determine whether or not they would like to expend the $24,500 towards the extension of the forensic audit?
I don't agree with
And let
it,
the
only because they
public
didn't get to
decide that?
decide in the beginning.
If we want to, if you have that language, Marlene, you can make a motion. If you don't have the language, we don't have the time to get it in. And so I would vote no to it.
I would vote no too.
But
Okay, that's fine. I mean, it could go out as a special petition, so no big deal. Thank you.
Okay. The other reason why I'm against this is because we were still waiting to hear for clarification, as far as if we could
Excuse me.
but any fees.
It can still go as a
So-
special petition, Jamie.
well, and
So it's
and
not a
let
big
you
deal
know.
to do it tonight.
if I could make one more comment on that,
we
it's
were-
also jumping the gun a little bit. We as a board have not voted whether or not we're proceeding with 24,000
Correct.
or that was requested to finish the forensic audit, or whether or not we're going to stop here.
Because we
So
have
we haven't even voted on that ourselves yet.
Okay.
And I don't think that's to finish, is it?
No.
No.
That's just to keep going, and if they,
Right.
you know, get bogged down and go off into the weeds again, it's. Anyway,
Right.
all right. So Town of Pownal warning for 2020. So, forgive me, I have to read all of this to you. So if I stutter, stumble, misspeak,
Can I chime in just real quick?
Yes.
Because you said they get bogged down and go into the weeds. I just want to make sure that, at least for
Well,
myself, I just want to make sure that, at least for myself, I thought the firm that we did a really good job.
They've been very
Forensic audit.
professional, and I'm happy
So
with
nothing
what
I'm
they've done.
saying
But
about whether I want to go forward with it or
what
not
Mr.
has
Graham had said
anything
was
to do-
they discovered more
Right.
communication errors, and it led them to have to check more than what they had originally anticipated.
the
So it
job
took
was
longer
bigger
to
than
get
he
through than what they anticipated. So that's what I meant. So,
Imagine.
Town of Pownal warning 2020. The inhabitants of the town of Pownal qualified to vote in the town meeting are hereby notified and warned to meet at the Pownal Elementary School in said town on Monday, March 2nd, 2020 at 7:30 p.m. o'clock in the afternoon, on Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020 for Australian ballot voting at the Pownal Center Firehouse to vote for the following issues and candidates. Moderator, 1 year. Selectman for 3 years. Selectman for 1 year. Selectman for 1 year. Delinquent tax collector for 3 years. Lister for 3 years. Lister for 1 year. Auditor for 3 years. Auditor for 2 years. Auditor for 1 year. Constable for 2 years. Town agent for 1 year. Trustees of public monies for 2 years. Trustee of public monies for 2 years. The floor meeting on March 2nd, 2020 will open at the Pownal Elementary School at 7:30 p.m. for Articles 1 through 2, then stand adjourned until 7 a.m. at the Pownal Center Firehouse for Australian ballot voting on Articles 3 through 20, or I'm sorry, 3 through, because we approved those other ones, 3 through 31,
30.
3 through 30, sorry. Polls will be open from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. at the Pownal Center Firehouse. Absentee ballots are available. If you'll be out of town on town meeting day or ill or disabled, apply at the town clerk's office by Sunday, March 1st, 2020. You or a family member may apply in person, by phone, or in writing. Articles to be voted on March 2nd, 2020. Article 1, to hear reports of town officials and take action thereon. Article 2, to see if the voters will authorize its treasurer to receive taxes until they become delinquent. Ballot articles to be voted March 3rd, 2020. Article 3, the election of all officers required by law. Article 4, shall the voters appropriate $1,049,615.00 for the general expenses of the town, of which $692,715 is to be raised by taxes and $65,399.83 from prior year undesignated surplus funds. Article 5, shall the voters appropriate $1,100,760.00 for the maintenance and construction of highways of the town, of which $848,697.13 is to be raised by taxes and $120,762.89 from prior year undesignated surplus funds. Article 6, shall the voters appropriate $11,000 toward the support of the Bennington Area Visiting Nurse Association and Hospice. Article 7, shall the voters appropriate $500 for the support of the Bennington County Conservation District. Article 8, shall the voters appropriate $500 toward the support of Bennington County Association Against Child Abuse, a not-for-profit agency. Article 9, shall the town of Pownal vote to raise, appropriate, and expend the sum of $2,000 for the support of the Bennington Free Clinic. Article 10, shall the voters appropriate $2,000 toward the support of Bennington Project Independence. Article 11, shall the town of Pownal vote to appropriate the sum of $1,800 to support the program and services of Brock Community Action in southwestern Vermont for low-income persons. Article 12, shall the voters appropriate $600 for the support of services rendered to the town by the Green Mountain Retired Senior Volunteer Program and Volunteer Center. Article 13, shall the voters appropriate $200 for the support of the Vermont Green Up. Article 14, shall the voters appropriate $5,000 toward the support of Oak Hills Children's Center. Article 15, shall the voters appropriate $60,000 toward the operation and maintenance of the Pownal Fire Protective Association Incorporated. Article 16, shall the voters appropriate $50,000 for the Pownal Rescue Squad toward ambulance replacement, insurance, operation, and maintenance. Article 17, shall the voters appropriate for the operation and maintenance of the Pownal Valley Fire Department consisting of the East Pownal Fire Company, Pownal Center Company, and North Pownal Fire Company, the sum of $52,000. Article 18, shall the voters appropriate $19,500 toward the Pownal Valley Fire Department Fire Truck and Equipment Fund. Article 19, shall the town of Pownal vote to raise and appropriate and expend the sum of $2,000 for the support of Pownal youth baseball. Article 20, shall the voters appropriate $500 for the support of services rendered to the town by the Project Against Violent Encounters. Article 21, shall the voters appropriate $15,000 for the operation and maintenance of the Solomon Wright Library. Article 22, shall the voters of Pownal appropriate $15,000 toward the support of a director for the Solomon Wright Public Library. Article 23, shall the voters appropriate $1,200 for the support of services rendered to the town by the Southwestern Vermont Area Council on Aging. Article 24, shall the voters appropriate $5,000 toward the support of Sunrise Family Resource Center, a not-for-profit agency. Article 25, shall the voters appropriate $2,500 toward the support of the program and service provided to the town by the Tutorial Center. Article 26, shall the voters appropriate $440 for the support of disabled Vermonters by the Vermont Center for Independent Living. Article 27, shall the voters of Pownal vote to raise, appropriate, and expend the sum of $2,000 for the support of the Pownal Valley Swinging Seniors to provide services to the residents of the town. Article 28, shall the town of Pownal vote to create a fire station building fund to be used to replace the Pownal Valley Center Fire Station and appropriate $20,000 to the fund. Article 29, shall the town of Pownal enter into a communication union district, CUD, to be known as the Southern Vermont Communications District, under the provisions of 30 VSA Chapter 82. Excuse me. Article 30. That one. No, skip that, sorry. Article 31, shall the town
No, it's
authorize...
30.
Well, yeah, it would
It's
be
gonna
30,
be
sorry. Article 30, shall the town authorize the elimination of the office of town auditor with future audits to be provided by a certified public accountant licensed in the state of Vermont in accordance with VSA Chapter 17, Section 2651B 1A and 2A. Dated at Pownal, Vermont on this day, 31st day of January 2020, Pownal Select Board. Brian Harris, Chairman, Elizabeth Rowe, Vice Chair, Harry J. Percy, Clerk, Bob Jarvis, Marlena Pellin.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second to prove everything I just said. Is there any
Good job,
discussion?
Brian.
Could you repeat that?
I could. How much time we got? All right, so any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I really hope you weren't serious about reading it again.
No, I
I
wasn't.
mean, I don't mind. I hate the sound of my own voice. I'm sure everybody else does.
You did a good job.
Thank you. All right, so Marlena asked for a forensic audit to be added to the agenda. Marlena?
We've already talked about that, so that's
Okay.
done.
External audit?
Meeting cadence. At the budget meeting the other night, when we were cutting the budget and looking at things, it was determined that we would not be able to afford to host a meeting every single week.
Oh.
And so,
Well, hang on.
Wait,
No,
wait,
we
wait.
did
and
discuss
take
this.
a vote as to whether or not to continue with weekly meetings
I'm sorry,
or
I know
go
we
back
moved
down
on
to every other week.
we skipped over the forensic audit and external audit, but
Well, we kind of already talked about those.
I know we did talk about them, but I think we should make it clear who should be the point of contact because things are so sticky.
Okay.
I think we should as a group decide who will be the point of contact.
For the forensic audit? Okay. So what are you thinking?
You, me,
Designate one person? All right.
yeah,
Make a motion.
Are you volunteering?
I will. I don't care. I don't.
I'll
Whoever wants.
nominate, or I make a motion that the Vice Chair, Elizabeth Rowe, be the point of contact for our forensic and external auditors as the Select Board liaison.
And make it clear, I know this is getting a little off topic too, but if we're going to be reaching out to the lawyers, I think we should agree as a board rather than just anybody.
Go back to just one person being designated for reaching out to the lawyer.
Yeah.
Well, just to be clear,
Send the question to the one person.
yeah, just to be clear, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, we are all elected officials, so we can certainly vote to designate individuals that as elected officials who are duly elected. We have the same authority as each other, and we can actually reach out and ask questions of whom we want, when we want, we're not bound by each other to each other. We're bound to our taxpayers.
That's not true with the attorney, at least. Or at least that's not how the previous board handled it.
Well, that,
Maybe
show me where it's in
So
writing, where
it
it
is,
specifies
well,
that the
hang on,
board will
Marlena,
select
I need to
an
finish.
individual to be the
I would like to
liaison,
finish,
and only that
Marlena.
person and that person alone may communicate. So,
Marlena, Bob was still
Marlena, I would
talking.
like to finish.
That's in writing, that is legal and bound.
Marlena, you
select
cut Bob
board
off,
members to
please.
it.
Marlena,
We
you
all
cut
have
me
the
off
autonomy
mid-sentence there.
to
and,
ask what we want, when we want, to whom we want.
Well, no, and I
That's
understand
not
that,
correct.
but
There's
when
a
you're,
cost associated.
One at a time, please. One at a time.
go ahead.
That's not correct. There is a cost associated reaching out to our
Right.
our attorney for sure, and there's a cost associated with reaching out to our forensic audit.
Exactly.
So I think as a board, we decide who the liaison is, and then we control that. We don't just all willy-nilly reach out and ask any question we want and use them as our personal attorneys.
Right.
As a board, we need to make sure that we as a board agree to use the attorney in such and such a way, and agree to communicate with our forensic auditor and external auditors in such and such a way.
And I think that keeps it open for communication with all of us as a board to know where we're at and what we're questioning, to come up with a
We
question as a group.
Right, we can ask questions of VLCT individually.
Mm-hmm.
If we want to go to our town attorney, I personally feel that we should
We need to get that
Copy the
under control
board
because we have spent
to
a lot of money.
the contact person, and they can forward that question on, and therefore all of us know what question's being asked. And if before that question's being sent, if someone feels that it needs to be reworded because it may be directed it incorrectly, for whatever reason, then they can chime in and state maybe different verbiage on a question or an additional question. But therefore, we're not all bombarding them, these individuals. Every time one of us contacts somebody, there's a charge. And right now, our legal fees are out of control
And
because
it
of
just-
prior practice.
More than budget.
We're all over the
This year.
place and we look like we're scattered chickens asking different questions, so.
Well, not just that, but we had
I know, but
individuals that
it's-
we stated no more contact without the board's knowledge, and it was happening all the time. So, therefore, there was a lot of fees that we didn't know, and we didn't see until they came in. So,
So,
Can I just ask
Mine was
a
a
question
motion.
in terms of that? Is this something that you're anticipating most of that happening in this coming month?
No, I'm just saying in
This is
general.
ongoing.
It should have been
It's
from the
ongoing.
beginning.
Oh,
It's
Yeah,
ongoing.
it has been ongoing.
Okay.
yes, we attempted
It's been
to
going
I guess
on.
corral
my-
it in, and it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Because we did vote as a
Yeah.
board that there would be
Yeah.
one contact and we would agree as a board, and that hasn't been happening.
Okay.
Yes, and that one contact was me, if I recall correctly. I think I've got the minutes.
as the auditor liaison, not as the attorney liaison. And I think we decided not to do that, and I was told that. It was a meeting I didn't attend. Didn't we retract that?
We never determined that there should be one person to communicate with the attorney.
I thought we did.
But we did,
Yeah.
but we did
Well, maybe we
determine
should
that there
do
would
that
be
now,
one
then.
liaison for the external and the forensic auditor.
All right, I'd like to
Okay.
make a motion that the select board liaison with our auditors, internal, external, and forensic, be Elizabeth Rowe, the
And I
vice
thought we
chair.
had
So, are
done
you-
that with Bonadio.
So why are we changing that, Bob? Because I was
Well, Marlene, I don't wanna-
elected for the forensic audit. So am I no longer worthy of that? Is that what you're saying?
Ms. Pellin, I don't want to get into it in here. Perhaps it's better for an executive session. But we have already seen the communication and why that's not appropriate for you to be the liaison. So let's not get into that. I've made a motion.
Second it.
Yep. So there's a motion and a second to approve Liz to be the liaison for auditors internal, external, and forensic. Is there any discussion?
Well, is it appropriate for Ms. Rowe to be the internal liaison when she requested the resignation of an internal auditor?
You're running to be an auditor.
So
I mean,
that's a valid.
and I asked you
I'm not
to,
a liaison for the internal auditor.
but I
The
asked
town
you
administrator
to
was.
resign because of your dishonesty at the time, and everything that had come out, I really didn't think it. I don't want to put anybody down and say anything wrong.
So we're
Yes.
we're off topic.
I
So
have a
there was a
motion.
motion and a second.
We're voting, so.
Let's have discussion relevant to the topic then.
Yes.
So, can I, relative to that, so this is basically a 1-month appointment?
Until the next
Possibly.
That's
board.
correct.
Until the next board.
That's correct, and the next
Right,
board
yeah.
can decide,
Okay,
just like if we
yeah,
wanted
okay.
to change the chair
Yeah.
today, which we
Oh,
will.
and it's advisory,
I
it's
didn't know
non-binding,
if
and
it makes
it
sense to have
it
somebody
doesn't really
who is going to
hold
continue.
anybody's hands to the
I mean,
fire.
you've got 2 people here who would be familiar with the communication if they were the person. But that's just a,
I just worry about the questions and the planting of seeds to look for specific things when I don't think that's appropriate when there's an audit done.
Okay.
Well, and then we also
and
have, to the same
it's-
point, you
yeah.
have somebody who wants to be the liaison that would also terminate in a month.
no, I'm not saying, my recommendation was not that. If this is a new contact and it's gonna be ongoing, it would seem to me that it would be more appropriate
Oh, for one of us.
for the one of you who you know are continuing on the board. But if
We can
that's not
reorg with the
essential,
new
you can
one.
rework.
We
Yeah.
can reorg with the
Good,
new
how are
board.
you
That's
doing?
fine.
And I know over the next couple of months, I'm traveling quite a bit, so it
Okay.
wouldn't.
Yeah, Bob's gonna be out of town. This will be the last
Okay.
physical meeting he'll be able to
Good.
attend. He'll be on the phone the rest of the time. All right, so there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Can I vote? Should I abstain?
I think
No,
you should
have
probably
to
abstain.
Yeah, abstain.
So, all opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so motion carries. Okay, so was there anything else?
That was for the forensic audit. I think we
That
still
was
need
for-
to vote on the, I'm sorry, that was for liaison with all auditors, forensic, internal, and external. We still need to make a motion on the attorney. Right,
I
the
think
attorney
that should be
liaison.
Brian.
And I think, I motion that Brian, or whoever he specifically designates,
Yes.
be the sole liaison with our town attorney.
I second that.
There's a motion and a second to approve the chair or whoever the chair designates to be the sole attorney liaison, contact person. Is there any further discussion? Or any discussion, I should say. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I have to abstain. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Okay, so on to the meeting. So we had discussed during the budget the added increase for adding the additional televised meetings was going to, I believe, add close to $4,000 or $5,000 to the budget. So we had cut it back to the original contract Cat TV proposed, which was only for 24 select board meetings and I believe 12 planning commission meetings. So, but we had already voted to alter the contract to increase that, so we need to, I'll make a motion that we go back to the original contract number. Is there a
Second
second? So we have a motion and a second to go back to the original numbers in the Cat TV contract. That way we have a lower cost.
And just to be clear, I guess this is the discussion portion, right?
Yes.
Just to be clear, we're not making any changes to our meeting cadence. We are making a change to how many of them get televised, right? The motion, we are currently at, if I understand it correctly, and maybe that deserves some clarification, the select board has voted to meet 3 times a month with a wastewater treatment facility meeting 1 time a month, and those would be regular meetings going forward. So this is to cut back on the expense of Cat TV. I also want to make the comment that we really appreciate Cat TV. We know that a lot of our elderly and a lot of others get their information from Cat TV, and it's a shame that we're doing this. But at the same time, we went from no budget 2 years ago to 2,400, and now we're asked to bring it up to about 10 grand.
Well,
which
that's
is-
if we met every week.
And that's if we met every week. But even with this, we're still bringing it up to something like
And-
8, I believe.
No,
And I would also like to point out-
6,100 for the
Yeah, 61. But I would also like to point out that we will be charged $50 for every hour we go over 2 hours. So we need to keep the meeting short. So
I think we're going
I-
hard stops.
hard
Well-
stops and public comment is going to be getting limited to 3 minutes a person.
Yes.
Back to what is in the book.
Attempt
We have to.
rein in
As
the-
much as I would let people have their say, we have to. John?
I was just gonna suggest, maybe the board could put out there a note, because there's a lot of people with Facebook Live, and save the town a whole lot of money there too.
You know, to that point,
Well,
that's
the
a really
problem-
good idea.
well-
Let's do it on
It's
the
the
agenda. Let's have the
yeah.
agenda state whether or not it's televised or not when we put the agenda.
that we can.
And and it should be on a regular cadence, so it should be, you know, the first one, the
Yeah, we could
second
do
one
that.
televised, the third one not televised, and wastewater not televised.
Okay.
Or something along those lines, so that when people download these, that's a really good idea. Because then people will know whether or not they should come in with their phones.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
So, so we're still meeting weekly, am I correct in what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I had thought that part of the item that we cut out of the budget was also overtime for the administrative assistant, which I believe with meeting weekly brought overtime to about 72 hours at her rate plus 1.5 times. And I believe that was something that we discussed during the budget cuts, that
Right,
that would be a savings right there by going back to 2 meetings per month. Am I wrong, Jamie? Did I hear that wrong the other night when we did the budget meeting?
That was one of our suggestions, to do that, or to start reining in the meetings so we're not having 4 and 6 hour long meetings. So if we attempt to take and police ourselves first to see how that works, and if that doesn't work, then we take and obviously drop a meeting if
Yeah.
needed. But I mean, we need to take and rein in the public comment. Unfortunately, not that I don't want to hear from people, but it's been weaponized and it's ridiculous. And
If
for
you have
us
something
to
you
do
want to
town
read,
business-
give it to us in writing. We can read it ourselves. If you want to discuss something not on the agenda, we ask you call and get placed on an upcoming agenda and make it an item.
And just as I don't think it's that usual to have the public, nothing against the public, I love the public, but to have the public engaged in every one of our conversations. You usually have
Right.
public comment at the beginning, and the rest of the comment is
'Cause we
between
get
the
so
board,
off
is
topic.
us
Yeah.
discussing, not communicating, communicating back.
Because
and
the
forth.
board meets
right.
That should still be the chair's.
in the public, not of the public.
The chair's best judgment, I think, because sometimes you do need to reach out to somebody who knows or somebody who has the information. But I think we're using that a little bit too much. Most of our discussions are meant to be discussions of the board, and they become discussions with the public, and that shouldn't be happening.
Right. Especially if there's a motion on the table. That's technically supposed to be the board.
Yeah, it's supposed to
discussion,
just be the board.
not open discussion.
And that's been my failure as chair to keep control over that. But as I've said,
care.
as
We
I've
wanna
said
hear
from the
what
beginning, I
people
wanted to
say.
hear from everybody.
But
it's gotten out of control.
I would be the same. You want to err on the side of transparency and openness, and
That's what I've been trying to do.
dialogue. But we need to tap that down.
Right.
And I'm continuing to talk because I can see Rosemary's hand going up.
And I want to
All right.
violate this right now. Just one question. I mean, I think the CAT TV serves, if it's used, a valuable service. Is there any way of knowing how many citizens watch it? Because as much happens in the special meetings that you have had as in the regular meetings. So I would.
Well, any citizen
I
can
would
come
say-
in and live stream it, put a video up on YouTube.
But
Citizens are more than welcome to do that.
Okay, but
So
then.
that's a good question. I think we would have to reach out to CAT TV and see if they have,
I-
because the
I don't know if
viewership
they
would
could.
have to be counted in multiple ways. Are they watching it live? Are they going back and watching a replay? And
Right.
how many times do you watch it on YouTube? And if
Right.
I watch it 3 times, does that count as three?
Yeah. I
As after
don't
I've
know,
already
but it-
seen it. So there's some challenges in getting it, but maybe we can ask CAT TV and find out.
Well, I was going to
whether or
say
not they
YouTube
keep track
views
of
per
it.
video are anywhere between like 30, and I think the most I've seen is like maybe a couple of hundred.
And if it counts the same person.
But I
doing
don't
it
know.
twice,
I don't know. They
then I've got
also
about
have them,
a
I think,
couple
archived on
times
their
gone in
website
and
separately as well.
rewind it.
But this proposal covers all regular board meetings and all planning commission meetings?
Yes,
Built into
we
the original contract.
we didn't do anything to the planning commission. There, we didn't touch them.
Right.
Okay.
So
I mean, and again, I'm not looking to personally shut anybody down. I know Jim was at our budget hearing, or planning meetings
Sessions.
also. And because his past roles in the town, he's been a wealth of knowledge and help for us.
Yeah.
When we're
Yeah, we
discussing
thank
things and wanting to know where certain things are. I mean, and Dave's helped us auditing, questions and stuff. That's why I say, I mean, you brought certain things up, legality, languages and stuff in the past. I mean, we appreciate that, but at the same token, we just gotta,
Stay on track.
yeah.
We got to rein it in, because if we go in at 2 hours over every meeting,
Yeah.
that's going to get really expensive
Yes.
really fast. All right.
Moving
So,
on.
no, we had a.
I think that's.
Need to vote.
Oh, vote.
Is there do you still have to vote?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
sorry.
So we had a motion and a
Copy
second.
went
Any
up.
further discussion? And just as a reminder, this is to approve the original Cat TV contract, not
Thank you,
the
because I was
new
going
one.
to say, do I really have to
Yeah,
say
this
what
was
are we
for
voting on?
the
Okay.
original Cat TV contract without changes.
Right, $6,100 for 24 meetings plus the 12.
12 planning commission.
So, if people want to know the
So.
clarification.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I
Okay. All opposed? Okay.
Dave had something.
But only if there's a less than 3 minute question
Yeah.
allowance.
That's
Relative to tonight's topic?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which topic?
I just like a clarification on the Second Amendment sanctuary. I'm trying to understand what the impetus for that was and what the board's vote represents.
Well, as was stated in the beginning of the meeting, it's a non-binding resolution. It basically just sends the
And
message.
the impetus came from, do we know that?
Well, yeah,
A
there's a
lot
lot of towns. A lot of towns in Vermont are doing it. I know it has been a concern of mine. This is why I voted. Why I voted for it and brought it up was because a lot of towns in Vermont are doing it, and I see a lot of gun laws coming out of Montpelier, which I believe puts our safety at risk because Vermont has been historically one of the freest states when it comes to gun rights, and also the first or second safest state for gun crime. Why would you start futzing with the gun laws when you have those kinds of
Right, I heard you
statistics?
say that. And just to clarify, does your vote in that proposal imply that it represents a majority opinion in town, or is that irrelevant?
Well, I can.
It's not irrelevant, but each one of
we
us
were-
are elected.
Right.
So, and I think if the people who elected us understand where our leanings
Okay.
are.
Harry?
Well, one, I personally agree with the Second Amendment, but also I got over 100 people that have reached out to me since the Virginia situation started, asking for our town to be part of that. And I've not received one email or call or anything actually stating the other.
Which tells you who his friends are.
I've been working on other stuff as the rest of us board members have, so I haven't really solicited it. But it was unsolicited people that came and
Thank you for the
called me.
clarification, that's all.
But that's where that came.
It's a really good point, Harry. I've had several people reach out to me also. I have not had anybody reach out and say I want more gun laws. Of everyone who's reached out to me, which also tells you who my friends are. Everyone who's reached out to me who wants to protect their rights,
Mm-hmm.
and they
Okay.
are
Thank you.
constitutional rights. To me,
Right.
that's not even controversial.
All right. So if I think we're done.
Motion to adjourn.
no, we still
No?
have one more item.
What? I forget.
It was the external audit. I'll be quick.
Okay.
Oh, a few months ago, I was reached out to by an individual regarding the process for bids for the external audit. And I had already had some information sent to me by Linda and Ellen months earlier, which I thought satisfied the individual, but apparently not. In reviewing the information, I did come across something that was quite alarming, and I just wanted to make sure that our process is changed going forward to make sure that it doesn't provide an optic that I'm going to explain. So in February of last year, Linda started the process to post for the RFP for the external audit. Is that correct, Linda?
Repeat.
In February.
You began the process to post the RFP for the external audit, correct?
In February
Perhaps.
of last year.
Okay, so I'm looking at emails from February 27th. The audit bid went out. It was posted on the VLCT website, the Bennington Banner, etc. And there was an email communication that indicated that went to the treasurer and to the town administrator asking if they had anybody they wanted to invite through a mailing list to bid on the audit. And the treasurer requested that the Bonadeo Group receive an invitation. The RFP that went out gave instructions for any bidders who are bidding on the proposal were to mail their proposals to the treasurer, and the proposal that was selected, which was the Bonadeo Group, was submitted to the treasurer. So I think you can get my point as to how this might look. The words that were sent to me were single sourcing, bid rigging, and influencing the outcome of an external audit. I would really hope as a board that we really look at things and we take charge of things so that these types of optics aren't out there.
There
I
were
don't know
no
what the
other
person wanted to
bidders,
do with this
Marlena.
information, but I just wanted to share that.
Bob has his hand up. Bob?
So, I had a similar concern at the time, and we voiced it at the time. I think when we go out with our RFP, we need to make sure that anybody who's done audits with us in the past no one gets a special consideration, and if we're going to reach out to individual auditors, we should reach out to all of the ones that we've used. As I understood it, Ron, I forgot the name,
Filio?
that they did last year. Although they could have responded to the RFP because it was posted, didn't get a special invitation for it and probably should have. So that I believe what Marlene is saying right now is a valid concern. We just need to make sure that that no one gets preferential treatment on an audit RFP, and that if either we don't reach out to anybody specifically, or we make sure that we blanket a whole lot of potential firms if we're going to reach out if we are going to reach out specifically.
Well, we have to remember that the select board is the client. We are the legislative body, and we have to make sure that we are the ones that are reviewing these things and making the decisions. It just gives really bad optics.
Okay,
Oh, all right. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. Is there any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Holy cow, I'll be able to see my kids.